So if you're watching this, this means that you have decided that thesis statement practice would be the best bet for you based on your goals from our last DBQ. So if you remember, here's our formula for how to write a good thesis statement that has everything that you need. First off, you have to make sure that you mention the topic. You have to state what the topic is. So in the case of our previous DBQ, the topic was slave narratives. Okay, and then the opinion part, the opinion or the assertion. So in this case, it would be slave narratives show that slavery was, and then you put in whatever word it is that you want to put in, horrific. And then you go ahead and you state your reasons why. Now, you might have two or you might have three. Having four is probably too many. And those two or three reasons why will become the claims for each body paragraph. So basically, having a strong thesis statement allows you to dictate how your essay is going to flow, which is pretty important. So let's go on to the next step. If we think about our slave narratives essay, and we just went over that example together, let's look at a strong example from a student from our last one. So this student said, these narratives, so slave narratives, show that the slaves were treated as if they were disposable property and meant nothing through, here's first reason why, unreasonable expectations, terrible conditions, and zero empathy. So we can see right here, these narratives, okay, so that is the topic. Then here's the opinion or the assertion. Show that slaves were treated as if they were disposable property and meant nothing. Okay, it's nice. And then unreasonable expectations is reason number one. Terrible conditions is reason number two. And zero empathy is reason number three. So this student is setting it up to where he's going to write one paragraph about unreasonable expectations that were put on slaves. Then his next body paragraph is going to talk about the terrible conditions that they endured. And then zero empathy is going to talk about how the masters just didn't seem to care at all. They didn't treat them like human beings. And so this also sets it up so this student can synthesize information from a variety of sources, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so this is a very strong example of a thesis statement. Let's take a look at this one. Now, this is also from our previous DBQ. And again, we have slave narratives. So here we have our topic. Then we have show how slaveholders did not care about slaves' lives and treated them like property. So that is the opinion, okay? Now notice this student has decided to use two sentences, which is totally acceptable. You can definitely do that if you feel like you need to. And then the student goes on to say, this is shown in cases of sexual abuse. So that would be reason why number one. Family separation and emotional abuse would be reason number two. Physical abuse is reason number three, and deprivation of humanity is reason number four. So this student is setting herself up to write probably a 6-paragraph essay. She would have her introduction, then she would have the first body paragraph would talk about this, cases of sexual abuse. The second body paragraph would talk about family separation and emotional abuse. Physical abuse would be the third body paragraph, and the fourth body paragraph would be deprivation of humanity, and then the student would finish off with a strong conclusion. So now let's get set to try. We're going to practice with our current topic using the information you've gathered. So you want to get your stuff out. Go ahead and have your green keep, remove, or change sheet out in front of you, that evidence grid that you guys worked within and that we did over the past couple of days, so that you have this information in front of you as you begin to construct your thesis statement. So I'm also going to go ahead and grab mine. Now mine is probably not as complete as yours because you guys did a lot more sources than I did, but here I've got it for 2. Okay, so here is my grid. All right, now looking at this, it's important that you take some time to think, okay, well, which opinion or which assertion am I going to go with? Am I going to go with keep? For keep, I've got quite a few. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't have anything on the back because, again, I only did 2 sources. I know you guys did 4 or 5. And then for remove, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Based on the sources that I looked at, it seemed to lean towards remove. And then I've got 2 for change or alter, okay, or recontextualize. I've got 2 here, and they each come from the different sources. So I think, as shown on my green sheet, yours may be different. It depends on what sources you looked at and how you kind of interpreted them. I'm going to go with remove, probably as my opinion, right? So just something to keep in mind. Now, as I go down here, step 1 is what is the topic of this essay in just a few words. Go ahead and write the topic down on your page. So just think, what were we studying about here? What was our main focus? What were you reading all about? What are we trying to figure out? What should be done with these things? That is your topic, so please go ahead and write that down. Now next up, step 2 is after you've looked at your green sheet, just like I did a moment ago, for yours, which column has the best evidence? That's probably the one that you should use as your opinion. So write down your opinion that you selected based on what the evidence shows. If I were to try to write this essay, and I really like the idea of changing the monuments, but yet I've only got 2 pieces of evidence, and I got a couple of options. One is I can go back and I can look at other sources to try to support that. Or my other option is I'm going to have to write for a different point of view. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. Now also, your essay will probably have or need a counterclaim, but that's another story. All right? But that's where this other evidence in the other 2 columns may come into play. But anyway, for this one, I'd be saying remove. So according to your sheet, what would you be saying? Okay? Go ahead and write that down. Step 3 is when you look at your sheet again, you look at your keep, remove, or change papers, study the columns closely that you chose as the best evidence, and what trends do you notice? Okay, so you're going to be saying, what connections can I make between the evidence that I've got here? You want to see how they get grouped together, and that's going to give you your reasons why. Okay, but I got to see, what have I got here? So let me read through. I've got the whole thing of 27% of Americans are offended by these Confederate monuments and want them removed, and that's as of a 2015 poll. And that was coming from the the Stone Mountain source that we all watched together. Okay, so that's one thing. So offended. I'm going to circle that keyword, offended. Just like we did with the whole slave narratives truths, you know, how we worked through that a little bit. Try to find those keywords. Okay, the next thing I've got is it's the symbolic birthplace of the KKK. Yikes. Okay, so that is a group that believes in white supremacy. So I'm going to write down white supremacy as my kind of key for that one, keyword. And then that also came from that same source. The next one I've got is Stonewall Jackson's great-great-grandson, whose name was Jack Christian. He thinks that too many people see it as a negative symbol. And he said it's a symbol of white supremacy. So again, white supremacy, that came up again. And then my next piece of evidence, it also comes from that same source. My goodness, that was a good one, huh? It was only 2.5 minutes, but still. People who put it up wanted to maintain slavery and that way of life. Okay, so for this one, maintain slavery. That also kind of leads towards white supremacy. Okay. And then we've got this next one, Mayor LeVar Stoney on his grandmother. Now this is coming from a different source that I watched. This was from, I think, the ABC News video. So he said about his grandmother, quote, "She would be offended by these things," meaning the monuments. "I want to be on her side." Oh, look at that. The word offended came up again. Okay, so I've got that. So now my connections that I've got so far is I've got offended, that people are offended by them today. And then I've also got that these monuments represent white supremacy. Okay, let's see what I got on the back. Then I've got from that ABC News source, city councilwoman for the city of Richmond. To her, what happened in Charlottesville was atrocious. Her name was Kristen Sakis. And then I've got Mayor LeVar Stoney said, what happened in Charlottesville is like a Klan rally without the hoods. Okay, so Klan rally without the hoods, again, white supremacy, right? Or these last two, really, though, what I see between them is they are allowing these attitudes to continue. Oh, so that could be a reason why for me. Okay, so you decide, based on what you see on your paper, how does your evidence group together? What might your reasons why be? And then go ahead and write them down. Now, another thing to consider is you want to put your reasons why in the order that you intend to discuss each one in your essay as a claim. So like if I decide, I think I'm going to talk first about the fact that these Confederate monuments should be removed because they're a symbol of white supremacy. That's the first reason why. And then I'm going to say that, two, people are offended by them today. And my third reason why might be that it's allowing these racist, backwards attitudes to continue. If those are my three reasons why, then I'm going to talk about those things in that order in my essay. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful to you. And by now, you should have a pretty strong thesis statement. Yay, you. Okay.